Ever wonder how we can possibly wrap our heads around the economy? It's this huge, complicated thing that covers everything from why you paid a certain price for your coffee this morning, all the way up to why entire countries fall into recession. It seems impossibly big, right? Well, there's a trick to it. See, to make sense of it all, we don't just look at it from one angle. Instead, economists use two really powerful, totally distinct lenses to see the world, and each one tells a very different part of the exact same story. At its core, modern economics is split right down the middle into two main branches. You've got microeconomics and you've got macroeconomics. So where on earth did those names come from? Well, the names themselves are a huge clue. They come straight from Greek. Mikros means small and makros means large. And here's a fun fact for you. These terms were actually coined way back in 1933 by a Norwegian economist named Ragnar Frisch. He really wanted to draw a clear line between studying the tiny individual parts and studying the whole system all at once. So let's grab that first lens, okay? We're going to zoom all the way in and get the view from up close. Let's talk about microeconomics. This is all about looking at the individual little pieces that make the whole economy tick. So the textbook definition says microeconomics looks at the behavior of individual units. But what does that really mean? We're not talking about countries here. We're talking about a single family figuring out their budget, or one company, say Apple, deciding the price for the new iPhone, or even just the market for one single thing, like coffee beans. It's the study of all the little nuts and bolts in the giant economic machine. And I love this quote from Professor A.P. Lerner because he gave us the perfect way to think about it. He said microeconomics is like putting the economy under a microscope. You're zooming in on the individual cells, the consumers, the businesses, to see exactly how they work and how they interact with each other. That's a great metaphor, right? But what can this microscope view actually tell us? What kind of real-world questions does it help us answer? Well, it pretty much boils down to three main things. First, it helps us understand product pricing. So why does your phone cost what it does? That's a classic micro question. Second, it explains something called factor pricing. This is all about your income. How are wages set? Where does rent come from? How is profit determined? And third, it deals with economic welfare, which is really just a fancy way of asking, how can we use all the stuff we have in the most efficient way to make everyone as happy as possible? The way it does all this is absolutely key. The main technique in microeconomics is something called the slicing method. You can literally picture it. It takes the entire massive economy and just slices it up into tiny individual pieces. One consumer, one company, one market. That way, you can study each little slice in incredible detail. All right, we've had the microscope out long enough. Let's put it away and instead, let's climb into a helicopter to get the view from way up high. It's time to switch to our other lens, macroeconomics. Macroeconomics, as you can probably guess, does the exact opposite of micro. It studies the economy as a whole, as one single giant interconnected system. So instead of individual prices, it looks at the general price level, what we call inflation. Instead of your job, it looks at national unemployment. It's all about the big picture, the aggregates. Now, what's really fascinating is that for a long time, economics was basically all microeconomics. But then the 1930s happened. The Great Depression was this global disaster that the old micro slicing method just couldn't explain. I mean, why was there suddenly mass unemployment everywhere? The old tools didn't have an answer. So in 1936, the famous economist John Maynard Keynes came along and published a revolutionary book that basically invented the field of modern macroeconomics to answer these huge economy-wide questions. So what are these huge nationwide problems that this new bird's eye view was designed to solve? What does macroeconomics actually explain? It focuses on the biggest issues a country can face. All the stuff you hear about on the news every single night. We're talking about a nation's total income and its unemployment rate. It's all about tackling inflation, that feeling that the cost of everything is always going up. It analyzes business cycles, those inevitable ups and downs of booms and recessions. And maybe most importantly, it studies the engine of our long-term prosperity, economic growth. And if the microscope is the perfect metaphor for micro, then this quote from Professor Bolding absolutely nails it from macro. He said, "A forest is an aggregation of trees, but it does not reveal the properties of an individual tree." This gets at a super powerful idea, that what's true for one individual person isn't always true for the whole group. For example, if you save more money, you're better off, right? But what happens if everybody tries to save more money at the exact same time? Well, spending grinds to a halt, and the entire economy can crash into a recession. See, you just can't understand the forest by looking at only one tree. So we have the trees, and we have the forest, one view from up close and one from far away. Let's put them side by side and see exactly how they stack up. This chart just lays it all out perfectly. On the left, you've got microeconomics. It's all about the individual choices, individual demand and supply. That's why people often call it price theory. But on the right, you have macroeconomics, which is all about the collective, the aggregates. It's the difference between studying your personal income versus studying the entire national income. And this picture just drives the whole point home. When you look at this factory, what do you see? Are you zooming in, thinking about the production costs and the pricing decisions of this one single business? If you are, that's the micro view. Or are you zooming out and seeing this factory as just one small part of the total industrial output of an entire nation? That's the macro view. It's the same factory, but two completely different sets of questions. It's all about your perspective. So that leaves us with one final question to chew on. In today's crazy, interconnected global economy, where a decision in one company can ripple out and affect millions of people, and a government policy can change the life of a single family, which view is more important? Is it better to understand the whole forest or the individual trees? The truth is, you can't really understand one without understanding the other. They're two sides of the same, very valuable coin.